Okay. Jim, would you mind? I got a question already. Would you mind letting us know when you're at the bottom of each slide so we can screenshot it? I have a PDF of all the slides I can email you as well. That would probably be easier than having you screenshot the slides. I can email those to everybody. I'll just email the slides to everyone. That'll make it easy. All right. That being all said, yeah, so welcome. Let me get to my screen here and get my highlighter. Everybody can see my highlighter. For those that don't know me, I'm Jim Douglas. I'm the director of handicapping here at the Carolinas Golf Association. I'm in my 5th year with the CGA. Just started my 3rd year as director of handicapping. Before that, I worked for a company called GolfNet for over 25 years. We were the gin and golf genius in the early days of computers. Um, and they were the provider of handicaps and tournament software for the CGA through 2013 when they moved over to the GIN system. So I've kind of been in handicapping for my career. The other members of our department our department head, director of member services is Kevin Harris. I think he's in his 9th year with the CGA. And he's a former PGA pro, so he brings that experience to the table for us. And now we have a new member of our team up here. Anna Catherine Herring just started a few weeks ago as a member services associate. She took over for Doug Hardesty, who is retired. So some of you probably know Doug, and he's retired, and we'll miss his knowledge and expertise, especially with the Golf Genius software. All right. So with that, yeah, you can pretty much. I have a couple slides for questions, but feel free to ask anytime. We've got a small group here. We've got 20 or signed in. I think I had a couple more that had signed up, so hopefully they'll get in here. But yeah, feel free. You can use the chat or unmute yourself to ask a question. So this seminar should last 35, 40 minutes, then I'll have plenty of time for open questions. This is just kind of meant to be an overview of what a handicap committee needs to do. So if you have an existing handicap committee, great. Hopefully you'll get a few tidbits here to bring back. If you don't have a proper handicap committee at your club, this will get you an idea of what's needed and how to maybe get one started and getting going with that, because really need to. It's the kind of the key to having good handicaps, if you will, at your clubs. All right, so without any further ado, let me get my mouse to where I need to be. Yeah. All right. So let's just kind of start with the basics. What is a golf club? And so what a golf club is an organization that is permitted through affiliation to its authorized association, and we are the authorized through the USGA. We are the authorized association to administer and manage the handicap index of those players who have designated it as their home club in accordance with the requirements of the rules of handicapping, which everybody should be familiar with. A golf course may or may not be associated with a golf course or facility. Most golf clubs we have here in the CGA, and really probably throughout the U.S., just affiliated with a specific golf course. But there are some that are just a golf club, maybe a Kiwanis club wants to start their own Kiwanis golf club, for a decent example. They can have a golf club. We call them a type 2 club. They're a non-green grass. And they can function the same as a golf club as any. So what are the requirements of a golf club? You need to have at least 10 active individual members on the handicap roster. The USGA checks up on that, and we check up on it. We check up on it throughout the year. The USGA has checkpoints, about quarterly checkpoints, and they make sure and let me know if there's any clubs that are below that 10 member minimum. A golf club needs to have a handicap committee, which is why we're here. Handicap committee does things like supervise golf activities, provides peer review, making sure players have posted their scores, apply and maintain the integrity of the rules of handicapping. Club members should have a reasonable and regular opportunity to play golf with each other. And then finally, members should reside in a geographic proximity to facilitate this. Generally, 100 miles is the radius of the principal location of the golf club. Some golfers can be members of more than one club. We call them multi-members. They can be members of more than one club. That's fine. They can have multiple club memberships. A golfer needs to designate one of those clubs as a quote unquote home club, and that's the primary club where the handicap committee would have control over any modifications to that golfer's handicap index, that sort of thing. Moving on. So we talked about mentioned the rules of handicapping that the handicap committee is administering to and making sure we keep the integrity for. And we're using the World Handicap System, implemented in 2020, beginning of 2020. Authorization for a golf club in North and South Carolina to use the World Handicap System is overseen by us, Carolinas Golf Association. Simply put. All right, so we do have a club has requirements. The handicap committee has duties and responsibilities, which is kind of the core of this discussion. But a club has requirements. Some of them we just touched on. Each authorized golf club must complete an education requirement within 6 months of the beginning of every revision of the World Handicap System or upon onboarding. So what that means, last year, many of you probably sat through one of my 2-hour seminars that discussed the rules of handicapping that had a focus on the changes for 2024. Whenever there's a change to the rules of handicapping, which typically occurs every 4 years, we have to do this education component, do a seminar, watch one of the preloaded seminars on the USGA's website, and then pass a quiz. This year, so if there's a change, you have to do that. Any new club that joins the CGA must do a seminar, pass the quiz to be authorized to issue handicap indexes. Then we have to do an annual assessment in the off years. And so this year, there's a annual club assessment that some of you have probably already seen, and that's in progress right now. And this year, it's pretty simple. It's really just verifying who the handicap committee chair of the handicapping contact is at the club. And then, of course, as mentioned, have at least 10 active members on the roster at each quarterly checkpoint. Failure to meet these requirements will result in the handicap index of the members of the golf club to be displayed as NH, which stands for no handicap. So I have the ability to deauthorize a club, which keeps golfers' accounts active so they can post scores, but it turns their handicaps into NH. I will say that is a last resort to have to do that, as it does get golfers' attentions. But I think I only did it once last year, maybe twice at most, out of the upwards of 700 clubs that we have here in North and South Carolina. But yeah, that's a last resort sort of thing. We're kind of learning, and we'll talk about the handicap review tool a little bit. Starting next year, there will be a requirement that all clubs run the handicap review tool on their entire roster yearly. So I know some of you have been waiting for the membership-wide handicap review tool. For those who don't know, the USGA's part of the handicap changes for last year was the ability to do a handicap review. And they've added that into the GIN admin portal software. Basically takes a golfer, you can review a golfer's handicap, review a golfer's scoring record. It takes their current index, compares it to their scores over the last year, and says, hey, this golfer's got a lot of low scores, you should lower his handicap. Or this golfer has a lot of high scores, you should raise his handicap. That's kind of a chore to run that golfer by golfer. But they're coming out soon, I believe at the end of March, fingers crossed. It'll be the tool to be able to review the entire roster all at once and see, hey, golfer A, golfer D, golfer Q, these golfers should be adjusted. They are going to require that this adjustment or this review tool be run yearly. I don't think there's a specific date during the year, it just needs to be done yearly. So that'll be another thing for us to keep track of, for you to keep track of, and as well as for me to keep track of, to make sure that the review's been run. But more details to come on that. Looks like mid to late next month they'll start the USGA with the team, and the GIN team will start teaching us about how this review tool is going to work. And I've planned one of these seminars on handicap reviews toward the end of March, pretty much, this is one I wanted to do sooner, but I'm waiting on this review tool to do that seminar. And I'll have one seminar, I'll probably do another one because I get a lot of questions on running handicap reviews of golfers. Yep, and then as I mentioned, the 2025 club assessments are currently in progress. Hopefully you've got it knocked out. Takes about a minute to get that done. All right, very good. All right, so why are we here? So what is a handicap committee? Handicap committee is the entity established by a golf club. I'm missing a word. A golf club, which is responsible for ensuring compliance with the obligation of the golf club under the rules of handicapping. I'll write down my typo here. My proofreader missed that. It is recommended that the handicap committee be comprised of at least 3 volunteer members with an odd number of members to aid when voting occurs. So if you have a situation where you need to vote on a policy or an adjustment or a modification of a golfer, you can have an odd number to break any ties there. The handicap committee should be chaired by a member of the golf club. So you could have outside members, not ideal, but you could have outside members be a member of the handicap committee, but should be chaired by a member. The handicap committee should develop a policies and procedures document for members of the golf club wishing to establish and maintain a handicap index. We'll talk about this as well as we go through today. It's ultimately the responsibility of the handicap, with support of Carolinas Golf Association, us here at the CGA, to ensure that each player's handicap continues to reflect their demonstrated ability. And this line is really kind of the basic, what everything comes down to is we're trying to ensure that each player's handicap index continues to reflect their demonstrated ability. Yeah, so then when I get asked, what should I adjust a golfer's handicap to? We want that number to reflect their demonstrated ability. Now, so too often is the case, our head pro is our handicap committee. It's just him. Having only the head pro as the handicap committee, it's just far from ideal. It's not prohibited in the rules of handicapping, but it's far from ideal. A club employee, such as a director of golf or the head golf pro, is encouraged to serve on the handicap committee or participate in an advisory role. They have excellent knowledge of golf. They know the golf course. They should have a good familiarity with the totality of the club's membership. All that knowledge is quite valuable to bring to a handicapping discussion, but it is preferable to not have the employee serve as the chair. It comes down to really, if golf professionals have to implement a sanction, a failure to post scores or a handicap modification, and enforcing the handicapping rules, it just can lead to awkward situations with the membership. So it's really not ideal for the golf pro, a paid employee of the club, to be the handicap chair. All right, so digging a little more into this, what are the duties and responsibilities of the handicap committee? Hopefully everybody has the rules of handicapping manual. I've got a few extras if needed. You can reach out with one. Try to limit those though to 1 per club, but more can be purchased through the USGA's publications website. First and foremost, conduct handicap reviews and adjust or withdraw members' handicap indexes if needed. Withdraw being kind of the last resort as well on that side of things. Post penalty scores when golfers fail to post their score. One of our biggest challenges, I'm sure you all know of a handicap committee, is making sure golfers are posting their scores. Got a whole seminar planned for that, talking about best way to implement penalty scores. But definitely a challenge for all of us, but that's one of our duties and responsibilities. Educate and communicate the rules of handicapping to members. We'll find if a golfer is more educated, knows more about the rules of handicapping, the better they'll be about their scoring records and so forth. Answer members' handicapping questions. I'll answer questions as well when I get them. I have no problem answering questions and queries that come in, but I'll always say, hey, for further questions, if you have further questions or for further clarifications, contact your handicap committee. You can see them face to face. and sometimes answer a question a little better than you can through phone or email. Oversee scoring records, apply score corrections as needed. So if golfers post a score and make a mistake, it does fall to the club's handicap committee to make a correction on their side. And we'll get questions on or requests to correct scores for golfers. We will often just redirect them to the club's handicap committee or golf staff, kind of hand in hand to get those corrected. That maintains peer review. One of the duties, responsibilities, always a big topic, is determining the stroke index allocations. Also used to be known as forever as handicap holes, and still, that's handicap is still put on scorecards everywhere. But that's a duty of the handicap committee as well. Work with and advise if you have these at your club, competition committees and greens committees, and perhaps the superintendent. So working with the competition committee, that kind of encompasses handicap allowances, what handicap allowance you should use for this tournament. With the handicap committee's knowledge of handicapping, hey, you should use 80% allowance in this event, that kind of thing. And then working with the greens committees, simply the main goal of that is to make sure your course, make sure the setup is consistent. Make sure that not too many tees are moved forward, so the course is playing easier than the rating, or too far back, so the course is playing more difficult than the rating, that kind of thing. And then finally, not a mandatory thing, but they can determine most improved golfers, because there's multiple ways to do it. There's like a couple different formulas, but that's something that can fall to the handicap committee as well. All right. Talked about somebody else in the meeting. Yeah. Talked about education and communication. So as mentioned, how well your members comply with the rules of handicapping depends to a large extent on how well they understand their player responsibilities and the ramifications of not fulfilling those responsibilities. The handicap committee should concentrate its education efforts on the key features of the rules of handicapping that are most relevant to the players. And those include acceptability of scores. What scores are acceptable for handicap purposes? The time frame for submitting scores for handicap purposes, essentially encouraging players to post their scores on the day of play, or as soon as they're done. We had one of our USGA discussions. The interesting stat was nationwide, 62% of scores were posted on the day of play. I thought that was a pretty low number, to be honest. So hopefully that's a number that we can help get improved and get that pushed up, because it is important to post on the day of play. Calculating maximum hole scores, a challenge there, making sure players know that what their maximum hole score is for handicap purposes, net, double, bogey, or what I like to do, encourage golfers to post hole by hole as the system takes care of that maximum hole score rule for you. How to post scores when fewer than 18 holes are played. I think it's a lot of golfers. It's in getting emails and phone calls. It's amazing what kind of things get stuck in players' heads about how handicapping and posting scores works. They get ideas that they've heard, and it's morphed, and they kind of get stuck on that. So I'm sure there's plenty of players out there that still think, hey, I just used net par to cover those last 2 holes that we didn't play when the thunderstorm rolled in. But that's changed. So making sure they know how to post properly now when fewer than 18 holes are played. How to convert the handicap index into a course handicap. Handicap allowances for different formats of play. How the handicap index is calculated. Don't need to go into the nitty-gritty finer points, but kind of the high-level view. It's your best 8 of 20 score differentials. What's the score differential? Well, it's the score with the course slope rating, any PCC applied, and then it's your best 8 of those. And then you can mention there's caps to keep it from above your low handicap index. The handicap committee's ability to post penalty scores, make sure that the golfers know, hey, we can post penalty scores if you were on the tee sheet and played with your buddies and didn't post your score. How a handicap review process works at your club. Very good. Um, how do we communicate all this to your members? An effective handicap committee will continually provide the education and information the players needs. Um, Obvious ways that you can think of to get the information out. Email blasts. And everybody gets a lot of emails, so that can be challenging. If your club has a newsletter, maybe a column in your newsletter about here's our handicapping topic for the day. Uh, I try to provide information in my semi-monthly uh, revision newsletters. You can appropriate that kind of information. Social media, if that's an option for you, if you have a Facebook or Instagram at your club, throwing up some information there. If you have clubs has your club website could have you could post your education or your policies up on your website for your members to access. Doing a presentation. I know handicap committees out there like to do presentations to their members about handicapping, and I can assist with that if needed. We have little player reference guides, little pocket-sized guides that can be handy to help educate your members. There's lots of handouts and displays that are available to you. Many resources on the USGA's website and the CGA's Gin Support website. I like to go to usga.org and there's a menu at the top. I choose playing and then choose handicapping home, and there's tons of resources. All right, so I talked about having a policies and procedures kind of manual, if you will, for lack of a better term, or document. Uh, Kind of what's the idea behind this? What would you have in this kind of thing? Um, some ideas. I've got a club that has a mission statement for their handicap committee. And our mission statement is and it's pretty much just what we've talked about to provide, encourage, make sure that golfers' handicaps are reflective of their demonstrated ability, that kind of thing. Uh, Again, how your club handicaps reviews are handled. Have that as a portion of your policy document. Um, as a reminder, clubs are supposed to do yearly reviews on their entire roster, or they can all do them as requested. Obviously, the yearly review will be a little easier next year with this new review tool. What happens when you don't post scores? You could have a policy that fits the best for your club. You know, the first time you don't post a score, maybe just an email warning or something like that. Then a verbal warning, then a written warning, and then you post scores, penalty scores, and then maybe further steps of action. Peer review, how that should work at your club. Handicap renewals, this is kind of outside the scope of handicapping, but how your club handles the membership roster. Right now, um, clubs get the billing cycle kind of starts in April. And so your members should need to know, hey, you're going to be inactivated on February 15th. Please see the pro shop to pay your handicap fee. As long as they know that, because we get a lot of questions, hey, why am I inactive? Well, your club's inactivated. You have to go contact your club. So keeping them informed of how that works is good. Any tournament eligibility at your club, whether you require 5 home rounds, 10 home rounds, what have you, whatever your requirements are. Information for new members. Hey, here's a welcome packet. Here's how handicapping works at our club. Go see this for the details on that. And then once you have a nice policies kind of document, these are policies and procedures you can pass down to subsequent handicap committees as they cycle through, so that they're not reinventing the wheel. There's things that, hey, you can obviously adjust things as you find what works good and what doesn't work so well. Just things that kind of keep things going along. What are some other considerations for your handicap committee? Committee membership. How long would a volunteer be expected to serve as a handicap committee chair? or handicap serve on the handicap committee, and as well as how is the handicap chair selected? Is it a 1 year, 2 years, whatever works best for your membership. Uh, how often your handicap committee meets? Um, do you meet once a month, once every 2 months? Again, whatever works best for you. Though it is a good idea to have a good meeting at the start of the season. Say here's some of our goals. Here's some of the golfers that we're keeping our eye on. We want to do 2 more net events during the year. Suggest that whatever works well for you in that meeting. Um, Often clubs have a like a ladies golf association, a men's golf association, and they often police themselves in handicapping usually pretty well. So you may want to have a representative from those kind of leagues on your handicap committee as well, so that um, so you have consistency over the club-wide goals, club-wide policies, and the specific league policies. Um, the size of your club membership. So, uh, how many people are on your handicap committee may depend in part on how large your club membership is. Sharing of committee responsibilities. I've showed you lots of responsibilities: education, peer review, handicap reviews. Um, split those up among your handicap committee. Make sure so that just not one person's doing all the work and getting burned out. Cooperation with other club committees. Um, I've had kind of move along. I have clubs where the handicap committee is a subcommittee of the greens committee, but the handicap committee needs to act independently. There's no mentions of greens committees and how it should be laid out at a club as far as a hierarchy, whatever. There's none of that in here. It just says the handicap committee is in charge of all these things that we're talking about. So the best thing is to make sure everybody's on board with how it's set up within your club. Again, and communicating with new members, kind of touched on that before. And then also, and I'll go into this, is how much your handicap committee or chairs need to have access to the GHIN admin portal to get behind the scenes. That's kind of because there are some levels of things you can do within the GHIN admin portal. You can have a full administrator, you can have read-only administration, score posting capability, just restricted to score posting. But I'll take this time to just kind of go over some highlights of the GHIN admin portal. Not going to get too in depth on everything, but just to get everybody an idea of all the capabilities that are out here. Yeah, so here's one of our e-clubs. And there's all these the GHIN portals all each like the member screen, the club screen, all kind of work and look the same. But these tabs are pretty light, but they are active. So if you clicked on roster, get you your club's roster. The golfer group is where you would go to. You could subdivide your roster, maybe mark your men's golf association golfers, your ladies golf association golfers, and then you could have reports specifically for that group. The account tab, we're on here, and there's some options on the left. Nothing you get into too often with any of this, but this is where you would add and inactivate your users of the portal for your club. Join and renew, something new here that we might look at, basically being able to let clubs, allowing clubs to have their membership register for handicaps online, but that's something that's kind of in the testing process. And an audit log, what that means is the system keeps track of any changes. Hey, you added a user, hey, you changed the email address for the club, that kind of thing. Not in here very often, though. At the top, we have a rapid score entry. You can quickly add batch post scores for golfers if needed. And then there's a slew of reports. Everything's electronic these days, but we can get some physical reports as needed, or get spreadsheets and things like that. All right. But more specifically, let's look at what you see when you look at a golfer's scoring record. Um, so here's my recent few scores. The one thing that's really handy to look at is the date the score was posted. This is something I look at when I'm looking at handicap reviews. We can see the specific date and time the scores were posted. So, if we see if these three scores were posted on the same day, it's cause for concern. And then we can, if it was, my scores are all posted hole by hole. If I clicked edit, I'd be able to see the specific hole scores. But the handicap, I'm on the score maintenance tab. The first tab is the handicap management tab, which shows the last 20 scores. And then on the bottom, there's a scrolling bar graph of the golfer's handicap history over the last year. We're on the score maintenance tab. Again, you can see nice summary of the scores, dates, the specific date and time it was posted, et cetera, et cetera. We can see if a score was edited, which is handy. Scores in the current revision are highlighted, and then the used ones have the star. Hawk says, Jim, I only see the roster, golf group, and account tabs. Yeah, you probably may. I probably have some more access than you know what, I've got super access, so that's probably why we can't see that. You can't see that. I might have to double check that myself. I thought I was in as a club admin when I did that, but anyway. But some of the tabs might be not visible to everybody, and that's fine. Not often. You won't have to go into some of those other ones very often, if at all. All right, score maintenance, and we can filter all kinds of things here. Post a score gives you the ability to post scores to that specific golfer if needed. Profile has the golfer's profile information. You could update their email address, update their name if needed, local number, Golf Canada ID if they go back and forth to Canada, that kind of thing. Audit log, again, gives us a history of specifics of any changes that were made to the golfer. And then finally, that handicap review tab that we talked about. If you haven't seen that, I don't have a screenshot, but it'll get in there. You can run a handicap review on the golfer, and they give you the recommendation of an adjustment or not. And then, of course, we see the golfer's handicap index, golfer's low handicap index up here. All right, I've kind of covered the basics, done it pretty well here, I think. Then we'll open it up for questions. I'm sure people have some. I do have some future of these 9:30 in the morning seminar topics where I'll kind of try to dig into these specific ideas more in depth and get people some information about that. One will be, I think my next one is a failure to post scores, helping to try to handle that. But that was a challenge for everybody. And penalty score posting guidelines. Handicap considerations and tournaments will be the next one. After that, I forget my order. These might not be in order. But I'll have a seminar on handicap review and modifying handicap indexes. I'll probably have a couple of those. Handicap reviews can be challenging. It's good to have somebody, and everybody asks me for advice. They want to make sure they've done it right. But I'll try to put everybody's mind at ease with how to do these. Plus, just technically using it, modifying a handicap in the admin portal can quickly become confusing. It's just not laid out too well. But that'll be something I'll talk about too, is the specifics of how to do it in the admin portal. What to do when holes are out of play, or if you have 9-hole closed. What to do with bad weather like we've had all week here in the Carolinas, poor conditions. We'll talk about kind of a summary of all that. Often get questions that are really questions that kind of lie outside the scope of the rules of golf and the rules of handicapping, but they're questions that apply nonetheless. Well, preferred lies is covered. in the rules of golf, rules of handicapping. But rules, mulligans, and what sometimes people want to do with misshaped greens. And when I say misshaped greens, you have a C-shaped green, and the golfer, you have to chip from the green to the one part of the green to the other to get there. What some clubs want to do there. But it often get handicap questions around these, and so we'll kind of talk about the specifics of technically what to do and maybe kind of simplify what you should do. And then stroke index allocations, very common topic of interest at clubs, of how to lay out the stroke index allocations. Very good. So those are my future seminar topics. If somebody has anything they would like me to have a seminar on, please reach out. I can try to put one together. And so now I'm going to open the floor to questions, though I have one that popped up. Do you have any statistics about how many scores were posted hole by hole? I don't, but now I'm curious. So I'm going to see if I can figure that out. Many hole by hole scores are posted. I would like to know that. I think I can figure that out. And if I find that answer, I'll follow up with you, Bill. Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that myself. That's a good question. Thank you. But yeah, go ahead. Feel free to ask away. I'm sure there are some questions out there.
Hey, Jim, this is Brian Copeland. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
One thing that we do, we mostly audit tournaments, but we go to the shop and get the number of times a player was on the tee sheet and then match it up to their posting if a guy hadn't been posting enough and we think they've been playing more. So in that future 2026 review, any chance of somehow integrating number of times on the tee sheet into that information? That's probably, it's not in GAN, obviously, it's in the shop software, but it might be helpful.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I can see, I think there might be some some third party software that can handle that. And we'll make a note of that. That was Brian Copeland. But I know that was actually one way I was going to mention that there are some clubs that I know that they'll print out a report of the tee sheet, list how many times they've played, print a report of how many times they've posted, kind of merge those data together, and then have a threshold. Okay, anybody below 90% or 85%, again, whatever works for your club, we're going to reach out to you, those people, and say, hey, why haven't you posted your scores? Interesting idea, Brian.
Bill Maxwell here, just to answer Brian's question. We had that same issue, and one of the ladies who happened to be the president of the Women's Golf Association was most vocal about it. And fortunately, I found out that she had a little computer background, and asked her has she's ever done work with merging databases? And she said, well, of course I have. And I said, well, there you go. We're going to give you 2 databases. Go get them. And it actually wound up being fairly quickly. So if you have anybody in the club who's, an Excel monster or Access database monster in their life, it's a fairly easy process for them to do, not for me to do, but it was easy for them to do.
Yeah.
And we run it twice a year.
Very good. That's fantastic. That's a good point. If you have somebody at your club who's good at Excel or Access, that's great, because in doing a handicap reviews, there's an easy way to export the golfer's scores to Excel, and then I like to sort them, by score type and compare casual rounds versus competition rounds. So yeah, having somebody who's good at Excel could definitely be useful on your handicap committee for things like this. Good to hear. I got a couple questions on the chat here for a second. Issue of guest handicap index in a member guest event.
Yeah.
Leonard, can you expound on that there?
Okay. In the review, I noticed last year I did 2 different methods. One of them I had like a sandbagger, where they have the scale and the probabilities and everything. And I said, okay, if if this team came in with a score recorded that was outside the probabilities, they were penalized a stroke or two, depending on what it was, a percentage. And then I saw another later on in the tournament, and I had a lot of beef about there. People saying, "Oh, I played the best round," but it usually happens with member guests that their guest has a 25 handicap and they come in and shoot like a 10 handicapper.
Sure.
So we had that. I had like a baseline or a ceiling of to catch the sandbaggers. But then later on, I also seen another method where instead of having the sandbag rule, you use like 50% of the low handicapper and 25% of the high handicappers index, and then you added them together to give you the team handicap. So when you do that seminar, maybe if you would help me address some of those kind of issues, because I get complaints either way. If you do like a sandbagger table and saying, okay, you guys outside the probabilities, they'll complain saying, oh, I just had the best round of my life and you're screwing me out of it. And the other one is saying, when you do a team handicap and you're only giving me 15% of my partner's index, then we can't compete with the better golfers. So I was wondering if anybody or you could address something like that in that lesson or seminar that you're going to do about how how do you relate to people, and what's if there's a process or somebody found a good process where they understand, hey, this is the fairest way we can do it in order to make the playing field level.
Yeah, I've got all notes on that, Leonard. Thank you. Yeah, those are some things I'll look at. So, I do like your first method of that. I like your first method, on handling that. You know, as long as it's one of those, as long as those competitors know, hey, you shoot this good, you're gonna have a mid-tournament adjustment to your handicap. That's certainly fine. But yeah, I always
do
got
you
the best round of my life. Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Do you use low 12 for the member guests, or do you go with their current index?
I did not hear you.
Do you go with the low 12 index, or do you go with their current index for tournaments?
I go with the low handicap index.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Skip says, what is the requirement for keeping scoring records? Used to be 24 running months. I assume, Skip, you're talking about keeping scorecards. Skip, where's Skip? Skip, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. What's your question here?
Oh, well, when I first started this job.
Cut out on me there, bud.
We had to keep running 24 months. And there's no and is that requirement still in effect? Or, and what would you, what's an appropriate record?
All right, Skip, I didn't come in too well, but I think I understand your question, but please shoot me an email when you're after the meeting if I didn't answer this quite right. I assume you're talking about maybe the eligibility of scores, how long scores are remain active in the system. There's no expiration date or time limit on scores. Active scores older than 24 months on my last 20 scores, since I've done playing so much right now. But there's no minimum number of There's no, again, no expiration date on scores. So you can have scores older than that. Now, does that play into effect if a golfer is not playing to his demonstrated ability? Absolutely. Sure.
Can you hear me, Jim?
Yes, I can now.
Okay, my question was, the handicap committee used to be required to keep a running 24-month, uh, every month you had to assemble your scoring records for the club and then keep 24 months worth of data on a running basis. Is that still a requirement? What's supposed to be in those files that you keep for review?
Sure.
And or is what all we have in the electronic stuff now, is that enough? So you don't really have to keep anything.
You don't really have to keep scoring records like that. Skip, the Gin software keeps everything going back years. So that's all kind of stored for you.
Okay.
Yeah, if you were doing a handicap review on somebody and you've got some files and information on that, maybe file that away for a couple of years just to, because sometimes you get repeat offenders and you can reference back.
Okay, so maybe just at a minimum, keep your annual review on hand in the pro shop or whatever, in case anybody wants to look at it when they're
Yeah,
coming in. Like if the AGA comes in and wants to see something, you've got something to show.
yeah,
Huh?
exactly. That's fine.
Okay.
Yep, very good. Anyone else? Anyone else?
This is Hawk again.
Yeah.
Jim. The other thing that we have just started, we've had the same event over the last few years, and noticed one of the guests that came into our member guest appears to have shot a lot better. So as a handicap committee chair, can we take and record him as an event handicap versus a USGA handicap? Because he'll come in with a 28 handicap in these member guest tournament. And like even the golf pro says, that guy's not a 28 handicap.
Sure. Yeah.
So what I've done was gather the data of all the tournaments he's played in with us, and he ends up to be about a 13 handicap.
Wow. Big difference. And I like that way you did that. Just using that. It's good to have numbers to back up where, golfer's going to say, where'd you come up with that number? Well, this is based on your scores that you've had with us. So yeah, that's not technically the handicap committee person's job. The handicap committee can help, but whoever's in charge of running the event, they certainly, they can't change that golfer's handicap index, but they can certainly say, your playing handicap's going to be 13 for this event. That's well and defined within the rules of what to do.
So a handicap committee is not overstepping their authority according to the USGA by us saying, hey, this is your tournament handicap.
Yeah, there's no issue there. That's perfectly fine and acceptable, well within the rules of handicapping.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, very good. And nice solution too. That's great. All right. Get me to there. Where'd my mouse go? All right. Any questions come up here in the next couple of minutes? That's fine. I'll gladly take them. We're doing pretty good on time. Again, thanks for taking the time today out of your day to hopefully you all learned a little bit more about handicap committees from me today. My email, it was in the should be in the from my recent invite to jim.douglas@carolinasgolf.org. Our main office number is 910-673-1000. Our GIN support, which gets up here to the member services area, is 910-687-4040. So you'll get either myself, Kevin, or Anna Catherine. And you can email us at GASC, which stands for Golf Association Services of the Carolinas, at carolinasgolf.org. Our website for both North and South Carolina members is carolinasgolf.org. South Carolina members can also explore the South Carolina Golf Association website, scgolf.org, and women in South Carolina can explore the Women's South Carolina Golf Association website, wscga.org. And again, the USGA.org is the USGA's website. There's a menu at the top. There's rules of golf, if that's something you're interested in, as well as playing, and then choose playing, and then handicapping home. I'm just gonna send a PDF to everybody, Hawk, of the slides. It's not a huge file, but I can get those right out for you. But I'll hang out here for a couple minutes. Thanks a lot, everybody. Appreciate your time today. Hopefully, helped you out. And like I said, keep your eye out for those scheduled future seminars, and hopefully get some topics we can help you with. Very good. Everybody have a great day. Hopefully, our weather clears up soon. Doesn't look like it for a few days, though. Take care, everyone. Yep.
I got a thought.
Yeah.
Our course is closed, and so we used the T sheet idea last year, and it worked very well. But the one weakness that has is it doesn't catch away rounds. All of our rounds are going to be away this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a thought about using GIN. This is just respond to this idea, if you would. If every pro shop were to register each player's round in GIN at the start of play as a part of its player registration, that would create a round record in GIN that the player would have to respond with a posted score to. Is that feasible?
There's nothing like that right now, but I like that. That's an interesting idea. I would love to share with the USGA and the GIN team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Starting around.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's a home round or an away round.
Sure. Yeah.
Every pro shop does the same thing.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's a nice, interesting solution, or little interesting thought, Ed. I like it.
Well, we're challenged with trying to figure out how to get posting staff this year when we don't have a good record of who's when.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge. I've made a note, but I'll try to think on it. But that's going to be a challenge for you for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Yeah, away scores are always a challenge in looking at handicaps.
Good. Thanks for the seminar.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Hope that helped a little bit.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a great day. All right. Thanks again, everyone.